Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Wednesday, and all of our guests today, including Paul Dolan, Talking Whitecaps, standing by, brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. Whitecaps at LAFC Friday, the third and deciding game of their MLS playoff series, and here to talk about that. And by the way, the Whitecaps have outscored their two playoff opponents 9-2.
Unreal.
In three matches. Here to talk about it, Apple TV analyst Paul Dolan, good friend of the show. How are you, sir?
Looking good, Dolly. Look at that color on that shirt.
Yeah.
Very lively.
Yeah. It's a golf shirt. Nice golf shirt. Picked up in Toronto there, Dolly.
Do you ever shop in Vancouver?
Brand, right?
Yeah. Hey, Dolly, the way the playoffs started for the Whitecaps, and I'm not talking about the match in Portland. I'm talking about the fact that the match was in Portland. They weren't able to host a game that they were supposed to host. The way the playoffs started, how do you explain the success since then? Since that, I guess you'd call it a setback.
It's unexplainable. Going into the playoffs, they were the worst team in the league. And I feel like the schedule just caught up to them. The Canadian Championship had kind of put them behind the eight ball because of all the resources, the energy that they were putting into winning that championship, and then having to condense their schedule a little bit near the end of the season because LAFC had made the Leagues Cup finals and had to postpone that game. So they were playing a lot of games in a short period of time, and I think they were kind of just running on fumes. I'm not trying to give them excuses, but based on the way that they were playing, which was also a little bit tentative, not as aggressive as we've seen in the playoffs, I wasn't convinced that they would go into Portland away from home, despite it supposed to have been a home game, and put anywhere near the type of performance that they did. But I think they almost used that to energize themselves. They got a little bit of a break ahead of that game. Actually, no, they had to go right into the wild card and then play shortly thereafter. So they were still kind of on fumes, but for whatever reason, they came flying out of the gate. And you know what it's like when you get that early goal and the confidence rises, then you get another one. And the Portland Timbers were just walking in quicksand the rest of that match. And I think that set the tone for the way that they played the rest of the series. You know, they played in LA really well, scored the late goal to make it 2-1, hit the post early in that game too. That could have maybe even switched the whole tide of that match in the early going. Because if you can score on LAFC early enough, then they've got to do the chasing. And then, of course, the home game was just phenomenal. Maybe the best performance we've seen from a Whitecap team, in many, many years anyways.
Ryan Gauld, 5 goals in 3 matches, and I don't know how much you watch our show. I think you watch it a lot, but I'm saying that soccer should get rid of own goals. He should have had a hat trick the other day. That's a subject for another day. But what is it that makes him, and we've asked other people this question as well, but what is it makes him so darn effective?
You know, I have to hit on your own goal thing because I fully agree with you. And the other thing they need to instill is secondary assists, which they really want to limit in this league for whatever reason. And in the game of soccer, even more so than I think in hockey, that secondary assist might be the long ball that's a switch of play from out of the back that sets up the goal-scoring chance. So I'm with you, Donnie. I mean, he's created really all 3 goals, right? He scored the second one, or the first one, and then he set up the second with the own goal that went in, and the third one that Brian White was close to the player. He has, you know, you could say, so goes Ryan Gauld, so go the Whitecaps. And it's not a stretch to say that. He is the MVP of this team because he is so important to the way that they set the tone early from the work rate that he puts on both sides of the ball. I think every time that I come on your show, we speak about that same characteristic that he has, but no other so-called number 10 or creative player or designated player, I guess, on any of the other Major League Soccer teams, put in the type of defensive effort that lifts the rest of the team. So it kind of all starts from there, and then everyone else follows, and it's just seemed to spur everyone on. But the fact that he's scoring all these goals now as well, when really he's been more of a setup guy or kind of the guy that starts the play, has been, you can imagine for Vanni Sartini, has been the real cherry on top of it.
All right, Paul, 2 goals in the first 13 minutes on Sunday. Whitecaps are 13-2-3 when they score the first goal. Absolutely. How important is that first goal Friday night?
Yeah, it's as important because of the statistics you just said with respect to the Whitecaps, but it's even more important because if you have your Google machine there and look up when LAFC scores first, it's even more daunting because it fits into exactly the way that they like to play. If you remember the game here at BC Place at the end of the regular season when LAFC scored inside of the first minute, then it was all uphill for Vancouver after that. It was a real struggle to break them down, and then they just wait for you so that they can counterattack you with maybe the best counterattacking player in the league, in Denny Bouanga. And you don't want him out in open space when you're trying to press for that equalizing goal. So it's absolutely critical to get that first goal. And for me, the most important thing for Vancouver is to continue to play really aggressively, the way that they've been playing throughout this playoff run. I found that at home, the Whitecaps this year were far too tentative. They allowed the opposition to have the ball. It didn't get the crowd involved. It didn't get the players involved. And at times, if the opposition did score, then Vancouver really struggled to break down a block. But I think if they can be aggressive again from the front, not silly where you're sending everybody forward when you shouldn't be, and you're getting caught out on the counter for someone like a Bouanga or the rest of the LAFC attack, which is so good getting the other way. But be aggressive from the start. You've got the attacking players. I mean, Vanni started what you could say was 6 or 7 attack-minded players rather than setting up in any type of defensive shell. And I think it kind of caught LAFC off guard.
Paul, 9 goals in 3 playoff games. That is a lot. Did you see this onslaught of goals coming in the playoffs?
No chance. Just as I said, going into the playoffs, when Vancouver, I think, had only scored 1 goal.
Yeah, they had not. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that was against Portland. They got gubbed by Seattle. I guess the LAFC game they got one, but yeah, it was not good going in, and the output has come because I think you've got Ryan Gauld, who, as I say, kind of sparked that with his incredible play in the early going of the Portland game, and it's almost like there's an unstoppable confidence in the rest of the team right now.
Mm-hmm. And Paul, we're going to end this segment with a clip of Vanni Sartini post-match on Sunday. But just tell me what you think, quickly if you can, what his job status was going into the postseason and what it's like now.
I feel like any talk of him not being around for next year was far too premature. I think he's done a fantastic job since he's been with the Whitecaps. Yes, you don't want to be on the type of slide that they were on going into the playoffs, but there are these hiccups throughout any season. It just happened to be at a bad time for Vancouver. But the fact that it's turned around in the way it has, I don't think there'll be any talk of that right now. And I think he's the right man for the job next year.
And just so you know, your job status in terms of coming on the show is not in question now that you agree with me on the own goal situation. So great job there, Paul. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Okay, fellas, anytime.
You bet.